right to work doesn't work for the American working class. It never has and it never will. This narrative that's really existed since the early days of the post-war era, where, right to work was put forth as this idea that would liberate the individual worker from the big union bosses, was always a lie. It was always a lie to disempower the working class, to divide it, to allow issues of race and ethnicity and religion to divide workers, to allow capitalists to split us up and pick us apart one by one, to force unions to represent workers and to give the benefits of their negotiations and their, representation, even if those workers don't pay. It's been a scam the whole way through. And yet right to work has marched on for many a decade. And it has support in some cases from both Republicans and many Democrats. Tim Kaine, Hillary Clinton's vice presidential pick in the last election, he supports right to work, or at least he did when he was a Virginia governor. It's a major impediment to the reemergence of good working conditions that help define what many see as America's golden age. But Bernie Sanders is offering a way out. Bernie Sanders has said that when he's president, in addition to all the other great things he's going to do around Medicare for all, around fighting for fairer educational prices, cheaper education, more accessible education, he's going to make things better for working people. And one of the ways he's going to do that is he's going to amend the Taft-Hartley Act to exclude right-to-work provisions, and therefore banning it, not just at the federal level, but at the state jurisdiction as well. And this would be a massive victory for working people. And it's weird because this story didn't get a lot of attention, I felt. Reading it, it's certainly one of the bigger proposals coming from Bernie. One of the maybe more contentious ones. One that's going to put fear, certainly in almost every Republican, but in a good many corporate Democrat, who wants the support of unions when it suits them, but doesn't want to reckon with the power of an organized, truly organized working class, making real demands on them, and having muscle and weight, consistent weight behind those demands. And so Bernie Sanders, again, as he's done throughout this whole campaign, as he did in 2016, he's acknowledged that America, and really much of the global West, is under a condition of class war. It's largely the rich people waging it against regular working people, and for the most part the rich have been winning for the last 40 years and more. And he says rather than shy away from that class conflict reality, rather than try to paper over it by talking about how we all have the same interests, which is a lie, Bernie has said, look, I'm here representing workers. I'm here representing unions. I'm not here representing capital and, the big business lobbies. I'm not here for them. I'm here for regular people and the people who represent them. And so in a sense, this is a big move from Bernie. A big move to restore balance in the capital-labor relations in the United States. To make it so that unions can represent workers more effectively. To make it so that unions don't have to give their services away for free to those people who free ride off of them. And to challenge the notion that right to work is actually good for workers. That to highlight how where a right to work exists, workers are paid less, they work longer hours, they have more dangerous conditions of work, there's greater inequalities between men and women and between whites and non-whites in terms of compensation, where non-union environments exist and where right-to-work environments exist. And that's just a fact. If you want to build an equal society, right to work is among the biggest barriers to that. It's right up there for for-profit education and for-profit healthcare. It really is. It's one of the biggest issues. And so Bernie Sanders taking aim, not just at individual issues of labor, not just at talking about a $15 minimum wage, but to really hammer in on the fundamental, barrier to working class power in the United States, which is right to work. It is an incredibly important move. Absolutely vital. So I'm excited to see this. I hope it gets more coverage, frankly, because this is an earth-shattering move. And what I'm really interested to see is how people really talk about this. Bernie Sanders announced this, fittingly, at a convention of unionists. He mentioned it at the International Association of Machinists, their convention, one of their biggest conventions. And it'll be interesting to see how this shapes Labor's support during this primary. A lot of trade unionists will support Bernie Sanders. And unlike in 2016 when there was a lot of pressure to back Hillary to, as the presumptive, rightful heir to the throne of Obama, now things are a little bit more in flux. And I think a lot of trade unionists who wanted to back Bernie in 2016 but didn't feel it was feasible or safe to do so may do so now. And Bernie's only making it easier when he puts forward policies like this. And it'll be interesting to see how Capitol responds and how the Republicans respond, which will almost certainly be with, an absolutely hysterical kind of tone. But what's most crucial is how this really shakes up the Democratic Party's understanding of labor-capital relations. The party, since the days of FDR, has enjoyed much of labor's support. Not all unions at all times, but whereas before FDR, labor's support didn't really break on party lines, at least not consistently, after FDR, unions largely backed the Democrats, for the most part. But unions they've gotten a raw deal from the Democrats, I feel, especially in the kind of neoliberal era. And so it's nice, it's overdue to see a presidential candidate like Bernie Sanders stand with unions and stand against, and again, I can't stress this enough, the number one barrier to the success of unions and therefore the success of working class people in the United States, which is right to work. So let's see if anybody follows suit. Let's see what Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, Beto O'Rourke, Kirsten Gillibrand, and Amy Klobuchar. What do they have to say about this? What do they have to say? It's going to put them on the back heel, I think, because they're going to have to choose. In a way Bernie doesn't. They're going to have to choose between, do we actually meaningfully represent working people, or do we go with our corporate donors, our elite donors, who want the image of progressivism, want that inclusive Democratic Party, but not necessarily if it gives meaningful power to regular working people in their day-to-day lives. So I'm glad Bernie's shaking things up. He's done it his whole life, and he's continuing to do it.